Tonight, when the sun goes down, you are going to flip a switch. Light will flood the room. You will not think twice about it. You will scroll your phone, watch something, maybe eat a late snack. And at some point, when your body finally forces the issue, you will go to sleep. For 300,000 years, none of that existed. When the sun set on your ancestors, the world did not dim. It disappeared. Completely. The kind of dark that modern humans almost never experience. No streetlights, no phone glow, no distant city on the horizon. Just fire, stars, and whatever was moving in the trees. And what they did in that darkness changed the course of human history. Anthropologist Polly Wiessner spent years living with the Ohonzi Bushmen of the Kalahari Desert. She recorded thousands of hours of conversation. Then she did something simple. She split the recordings by time of day. What she found was striking. During the day, the conversations were practical. Who is hunting where? What food was found? Complaints about work. Disputes about resources. The ordinary business of keeping a camp alive. At night, everything changed. Around the fire, the conversations became something else entirely. Stories, distant places, people who were not there, events that had happened long ago, spirits, the behavior of animals, what it means to be a person, what happens after death. Wiessner called this the difference between day talk and night talk, and she argued that night talk, the kind of conversation that only happens when the work is done and the fire is burning and the dark is pressing in from every side, was one of the most important cognitive events in human history. Here is why. When you talk about someone who is not present, you are doing something cognitively remarkable. You are holding a mental model of another person, their personality, their history, their likely behavior, and you are running simulations of them in your mind. You are imagining. Every story told around a prehistoric fire was a rehearsal of the social world. Who can be trusted? Who has acted with honor? Who has broken a promise, and what happened to them? What the right thing to do looks like in a situation no one in the camp has faced yet. The fire was not just keeping them warm, it was running a social simulation that built the human brain. Neuroscientist and anthropologist Robin Dunbar has spent decades studying the evolution of the human brain. His research suggests that the human neocortex, the part of your brain responsible for complex social reasoning, grew specifically to handle the demands of large social groups. And he argues that language itself, the ability to talk about things that are not immediately present, evolved as a kind of social glue. Before language, primates maintained social bonds by grooming each other, one animal picking through another's fur. It worked, but it was slow. You could only groom one animal at a time. Language let our ancestors groom dozens of social relationships at once. Sitting around a fire, telling a story, a person could update 20 people simultaneously about the social state of the group. Who did what? Who deserves trust? Who should be watched? The campfire was the original social media, and it ran every night for 300,000 years. But the fire did something else too. It extended the day. Before fire, human activity was bound by sunlight. When light ended, behavior changed. But fire pushed the boundary of the active human day by hours. And those extra hours were not spent on more hunting, more gathering, more practical work. They were spent on everything that makes us human. Art, music, dance, story. The earliest known musical instruments date back at least 40,000 years. The earliest cave art even further. Archaeologists have found evidence of pigments, beads, and ochre used for body decoration going back 100,000 years or more. Every single one of those things is a nighttime activity. You do not paint a cave wall at noon while the women are gathering and the hunters are tracking. You do it at night, with firelight, in a space that requires effort to reach, surrounded by people who came specifically to be there. The night was when culture happened. Now think about what was happening to your body during those hours. Your ancestors slept differently than you do. Matthew Walker, a neuroscientist and sleep researcher at UC Berkeley, has studied sleep across cultures, including traditional societies that have had minimal contact with modern life. What he found challenges almost everything we think we know about sleep. Modern humans treat sleep as a block. 8 hours, ideally in one stretch, starting after dark and ending at sunrise. We treat anything else as a disorder. Your ancestors did not sleep this way. Jerome Siegel, a sleep researcher at UCLA, spent years tracking the sleep patterns of 3 traditional hunter-gatherer societies: the Hadza of Tanzania, the San Bushmen of Namibia, and the Tsimane of Bolivia. None of them slept in a single unbroken block. They slept in 2 phases. They would sleep for a few hours after dark, then wake naturally in the middle of the night for an hour or 2. During this waking period, they would talk, tend the fire, have sex, sometimes walk to a neighboring camp, then they would sleep again until near dawn. This pattern has a name. Historians call it segmented sleep or biphasic sleep. And for most of human history, it was normal. In fact, historian Roger Ekirch at Virginia Tech spent over 20 years researching historical sleep records from across Europe and found hundreds of references to a first sleep and a second sleep in documents going all the way back to the medieval period. The idea that humans sleep in one single block is a modern invention, one that only became standard after artificial lighting changed the structure of the night. The hour between the first and second sleep had a name in some historical communities. It was called the watch, and people used it deliberately. They prayed. They thought through problems. Some writers kept notebooks beside the bed specifically for this period, which they described as a time of unusual mental clarity. The brain state during that midnight waking is different from both sleep and normal wakefulness. It sits closer to the hypnagogic state, the threshold between consciousness and dreaming, where the mind makes unusual connections, where ideas arrive sideways. Some researchers have suggested that this nightly mental state, repeated across a lifetime, across generations, was one of the conditions that allowed early humans to develop the kind of creative, lateral thinking that separates us from every other species on Earth. We did not just sleep away the night, we used it. And then there was the danger, because while the fire burned and the stories were told and the camp dreamed in 2 segments, the dark beyond the fire line was not empty. Your ancestors knew this with a certainty that modern humans have almost completely lost. The predators that hunted humans were mostly nocturnal: leopards, lions, hyenas. They operated in the dark, and they had eyes built for it. Your ancestors did not. The fire was the boundary. Inside the light, safety. Outside it, a world that could kill you. Researchers studying fear responses in modern humans have found that the fear of the dark is not a childhood quirk that healthy adults grow out of. It is a baseline response, present across cultures, across ages, and across species of primate. Your body still knows, at a level below conscious thought, that darkness is where the danger lives. Every time you feel slightly uneasy in a dark parking lot, every time you check the shadows in an unfamiliar room, you are running a 300,000-year-old threat detection system that was calibrated in a world where that unease was completely correct. The fire was not just warmth and light. It was the difference between being the predator and being the prey. And the people who sat around it, telling stories in the dark, passing down knowledge wrapped in narrative, rehearsing the social world through gossip and myth, sleeping in 2 parts with a window of strange clarity in the middle, were not primitive people killing time until civilization arrived. They were doing exactly what made civilization possible. So tonight, when you flip that switch and the room fills with light, understand what you have replaced. Not just darkness. 300,000 years of fire, story, 2-part sleep, and the particular quality of thinking that only comes when the world goes quiet and the mind is left alone with whatever is true. That hour in the middle of the night when you wake up and cannot get back to sleep? Your ancestors called it the watch. They used it on purpose.